Buongiorno! Welcome to day 2 of our pilgrimage. Today we will be visiting San Rufino and Santa Maria degli Angeli.
Let us join in prayer together to begin our day.
In the presence of the Sending Father, in the presence of the Pilgrim Son, in the presence of the wind-like Spirit, in the presence of the Three, we are one. We place our souls and bodies under your guiding this day. O God, O Father of help to pilgrims, protector of heaven and earth. Amen. We gather here today in the square outside of the Cathedral of San Rufino. As we look around, the sight that greets our eyes would not have been unfamiliar to Clare, as the square has seen little change since Clare's day. Sadly, one thing that has changed is Clare's family home. It no longer exists. The basilica was erected here in the 8th century in honour of the first bishop of Assisi, Rufino, who was martyred in 238 AD. So let us go inside, and the first sight that meets our eyes are the statues of Francis and Clare. As we turn to our right, we see in the corner the baptismal font where both Clare and Francis were baptized. It was in this cathedral that Francis preached his first sermon. As we leave San Rufino, we are going to follow in the footsteps of Clare, as she left here on Palm Sunday, and later that evening made her way to the Portiuncula. We make our way carefully down these steps and onto the waiting coach for our short journey. It is a distance of 4 kilometres, which would have taken Clare about an hour to walk. This is the view as we make our journey today.
The conspicuous dome of Santa Maria degli Angeli rises out of the plain and can be seen from the walls of Assisi. This magnificent building was originally designed by Galeazzo Alesi and completed in 1679. Sadly, apart from the cupola and apse, it was badly damaged by an earthquake in 1832 and was substantially rebuilt. Its present facade was added in 1928. It houses one of the most loved of Franciscan sites, the little church of St Mary of the Portiuncula. It was to this building, now situated under the cupola of the basilica, that Clare hurried to meet Francis and his brethren on that momentous Palm Sunday night in 1212. Walking across the piazza and approaching the main doors, we can see, glittering in the sunlight, the colossante statue of Santa Maria degli Angeli, placed high above us on the facade in 1930. Despite its magnificent portico, as we enter the building's spacious interior, we see from the clear lines and stucco walls and small chapels that its function and purpose is to shelter both pilgrims and a precious site, the little building at its heart, the Church of St Mary of the Portiuncula. With its tiny interior and frescoed walls depicting scenes from the life and legend of St Francis, it was before this altar and its painting of Mary that Clare committed herself to a life of poverty and penance. As Thomas of Celano writes in his biography of St Clare, this is the place in which, under Francis' command, the new army of the poor had its happy beginning. Thus it is plain to see that the merciful mother gave birth to both religious orders the Friars Minor and Poor Clare's, in her own house. Moving forwards and to the right of the Portiuncula, we pass the Cappella del Transito, the tiny cell in which Francis died, and we leave the nave by a side door. As we enter the cloister, we can see standing in the corner a statue of Francis holding fresh roses. Look carefully, and on the left you will see one of the doves that nest in Francis' hands. Passing the rose garden and resisting the temptation to buy souvenirs from the visitor's shop, we step into the sunny courtyard in front of the Portiuncula Museum. The museum is built in the precincts of the early friary that stood on this spot and houses artefacts and paintings as well as the restored original friars' cells. Just by the door of the museum is a statue of St Francis holding a cicada in his hand. Not the most obvious of lovely creatures, but symbolising Francis and Clare's respect for all of God's created world.
Let us return to the Portiuncula for our time of quiet. The way of life chosen by Clare as she stepped towards Francis in this place was not easy. She totally trusted that God would support her and be with her. Often we pass through difficult times in our life, but we can rely on God's faithfulness. In a few moments of silence, let us rest in the peace and love of Christ.
Join us tomorrow for day 3 of our pilgrimage